I want to share with you a little bit about what we've looked at with motivation. Motivation was really the number one issue in our pre-survey nationally before we started this tour of regional events. And I think it's changing a little bit now as some of the schools go back to actual physical schooling, but motivation of students is a lot about what like Terry Vest and I were talking about earlier, which is, they have to be, have some agency to learn remotely. And it seems like remote's going to be part of the flavoring of all education for here on out. Hybrid learning, simultaneous learning, parallel learning, whatever you want to call it. But you have to sort of get yourself out of bed and get online. That's a problem for some kids. Other ones were doing fantastically well. They're like, this is my jam. I'm doing this. They're succeeding brilliantly. So we learned something about the disparity amongst students, and it means normal's not coming back because we're going to adapt now. So when we talk about motivation, one of the things that we researched was this book, The Motivation Breakthrough, was the forces that actually motivate humans themselves. What makes somebody get involved in learning? And so this author basically talked about these 8 different forces of gregariousness, someone they're just friendly kids and they just want to be with other kids and be friendly. And they're motivated by that sense of, camaraderie with other students and their teachers. Then other students are driven by autonomy. They're driven by their sense of control and pulling things in from a learning perspective themselves. Others are status driven. They want like awards, and others are just basically inquisitive. And if you hand them a question, that's when they do best. They don't want to be told anything. They're just tell me what I kind of don't know, and I'm going to go figure it out. Other kids are motivated by aggression. This isn't a negative thing. It necessarily means they're motivated because they're told not to do something, or they're structured in such a way that they feel like they have to push their way in, and that being able to be push, sort of an aggression move actually helps them learn. They get interested because of that. And some of that's going on with the esports arena, which has just taken off during the pandemic in a big way. Others are motivated by power. And those are the kids that, okay, now you're going to run the Zoom meeting now you're going to run this offshoot group for a while. They love it. They loved it in kindergarten when the teacher would pass them the little baton to wake up kids from their naps. They're motivated by this. And then others by recognition, which isn't that different, I think, than status. And then also kids by affiliation. They want to be affiliated to a group. Even if they're learning remotely, they're affiliated to you. And that's really a difference in traditional public education for its online offerings and all online remote schools. Because affiliation is not as strong when there isn't a physical entity that you're also affiliated to. So anyway, we looked at all that, and then we looked at sort of the secrets behind that. What do you do to motivate these types of kids? And of course, there's projects, do more people motivated stuff, praise, use prizes, use prestige, use power, let students run some things or let them make choices about the next hour. These are the things that we wanted just to share with you really quickly so that you understand what differences in practices might need to be. So you're hitting people and students where they're at in terms of what motivates them. Because if you're thinking about motivation as just sort of a blanket, everybody gets a gold star, that's not going to motivate some of the kids. And that's what we're learning from all this pandemic, is that different people are motivated by different things. So one secret is you never want to share your observations, like, oh, this kid's just like he's motivated by being in control of the whole thing. You don't want to share that. That can sort of label kids. That's not a good idea. But letting tech do it, kind of as Learning Council's view, is like what motivates. Okay, so tech done well motivates. Tech done in a not well way doesn't motivate. It demotivates. So this is a really big clue as to what you need to think with. So projects, big time going on in tech right now. There's robotics, AR, VR, all kinds of discovery-based systems. People motivation, like the social media, like being able in Plotagon to create your own digital comic book to show your essay rather than just a typed up essay is super cool. Prestige, most software right now will give you some sort of award, or at least it has, fireworks go off on screen when you reach a point that you completed. Also, praises and prizes are common in most systems now, especially the digital courseware system that shows you have accomplished something with check marks and everything else. Okay. And you know, there's power in terms of like Lightspeed's going to share this later, where students can have their own mic. If they're so far away, nobody can hear them. That gives them a little sense of power. Also coming on board now is things like AR, avatar-based training. And another comment to make is the only effective long-term motivator is success. So attention to that is going to drive more motivation in students. So really the challenge is letting tech do some of the work to motivate your students, but the right tech, and then realizing really concretely that one of the most appropriate techs is the humans for motivating the individual students. So if you're not driving at a structure of teaching and learning that allows some of that individual time with the teacher, even though it's digital now and they're far away and it's on a screen, if you're not allowing those independent calls or those independent video conference moments, then that student may not be really motivated because there's no personal time. So that's really the issue. Even when you were in class before, the teacher would eyeball you or comment to you as you came in or notice you just by a glance. But when you're on video, you can't really see that happening. So this human know-how is starting to be a premium and it has to have attention to it. So those are the key points we wanted to make about what's happening with motivation. So I'm going to go back and see if my guys are back yet. Share that screen. So Dr. O'Malley, Dr. Simon, you guys are back? Okay, great.
We're back.
All right, so good. I don't know how much you heard, if you had to take a little break or something about what we talked about motivation, but you know, this is a really big deal. And all our point was people, including your students, are each have their own senses of what motivates them. And the map of how you're executing on teaching and learning has to sort of take that into account. So what are your thoughts on the motivation of students right now?
Yeah, listen, I'm struck by much of what you shared, and what I find fascinating, and maybe it's anecdotal, you know, at this point, but I've seen some data published from individual school districts, particularly high schools, that say, hey, at this point, we've surveyed our families. We're in March. We're trying to find out how many of our families want to come back to school for in person, how many want to stay remote, how many would prefer 2 days a week if that's the hybrid model or however they have it set up. And it's discouraging to see some of this data come back with a higher number than I would have ever expected of individual families that, whether that's generated only by the student or it's a family decision, say that they're most comfortable staying remote right now. And it makes me think about, is it because they're afraid of what's happening with COVID still? Is it because the remote learning or e-learning model or you know is just so enhanced and enriching that that's what they prefer? Or are they just so demotivated at this point that going 2 days a week just to go and sit down and take in-person tests, and the remote is just check a box to say you were here and you're really just asynchronously on your own for a whole day, have just sort of, some of that number is a lot of folks just not motivated and kind of giving up on the year. That's what I think a lot about. And it motivates us, and has since June and July to this day, motivates us still to maximize that in-person learning. I had mentioned earlier on that we're just under 10% of folks that are still remote, and we're reaching out to those families, not to push them to come back by any means, but to find out if there's an obstacle that we have not identified yet that is still for one or two or a small number of families. We want to iron that one out too. So yeah, I think a lot about that, and I think that where we need to get to is to really reflect this summer, you know, spring and summer, getting into next year, to find out, is the organization going to emerge stronger in ways that we haven't even thought about yet? If not, shame on us. If so, good for us. And and I just think it's to those levels of absolutes at this point. Paul mentioned this idea of being, you know, analysis paralysis, and you know, there's a point we share in coaching others and so on as leaders, being able to make a decision, and I think you allude to this, being able to make a decision versus waiting to make the best decision of all time. Those are different from each other. And if you're not comfortable making a decision, I am. And the reason I am, and I know Paul is because making a decision, knowing the organization is hardwired to continuously improve and learn as an organization, means that we don't have to be perfect out of the gate. I'd like to have a strong start, and I think we did. But if there's a commitment at the organizational level to retool and learn and get better, move forward, take that step forward. That's what I'd say about the motivation piece from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, he hit the nail on the head. The critical connections that we have with our students in the building it's so important. It's just the foundation of what we do. And not only am I seeing it in the school, but I'm also seeing it at my house. I'm living it on a daily basis with my two boys. And I have a junior high student and I have a high school student. And when I hear my high school student that he would rather stay home than go to school, that's a problem. And it's not necessarily the academics. Don't forget, we have athletics, we have activities. We go above and beyond to provide for our kids. And so for me, I'm a firm believer in virtual learning. I was a part of a district that went to the state legislators many years ago and got a waiver from the state on the number of hours that are applicable for the average daily attendance. And so I believe there is a place for the remote learning for the virtual schools. What keeps me from believing it wholeheartedly without challenging it is the school to prison pipeline. And we know that there is a correlation between the lack of attendance in our schools and how that will affect our youngsters of tomorrow. And so we have to find a way to get them back. We have to have that connection. And without it, it's going to be very problematic. And so we have to be able to get back into a habit of having those critical connections, reforming those critical connections, and most importantly, finding that pathway, whatever it is, whether it's staggered like steps on the staircase or brought in by waves. It has to happen sooner rather than later. I think the summer is going to be the opportunity for some of the schools to really build that momentum piece, as I talked about. And I'm hopeful. I'm reading quite a bit about it, about schools starting a summer school. This will be our second year in the junior high of having a full-blown summer school. We actually have 3 sessions this year. We had 2 last year. During our sessions last year is when we provided the teachers the ability to practice through PD, and we're continuing that PD model, which has made us really, really successful as we move forward. And that's my thoughts.
Well, it's interesting because, our statistics, and I don't know if I'm going to go all the way back to those and share all of those with you now, but our statistics are showing that the model shift is real for how you would change the very structure of teaching and learning. Because like you guys are both pointing out, some kids aren't coming back. The national average is 20% want to remain affiliated with your institution, but they don't want to physically be there all the time, only part of the time maybe. Lammersville ISD in California, the requirement is 1 hour a week. Different states have different requirements, but they can still be on the football team. This is how Lammersville pulled all their homeschoolers back in. You can still be on the football team, you come in for the hands-on art classes, be in the band, do the science labs, and you don't physically have to be here all the time, but once in a while there's a lecture you can't miss. This is what we call the Uberization. It's hybrid logistics. It puts teacher moments at a premium, and all the rest of their time you're in a virtual or physical commons room, commons area, you're studying off on your own. It's kind of the corporate model, you're in a cubicle farm, Corral farm, all the time laying around on a sofa somewhere, or you're at home and then you get triggered by a notification to go to a class once in a while. Human intersection, no one argues with that I know. It's the fact that we have seen some kids flourish in remote that is the question. How much do we force them to interact with other humans if they're kind of like not into that? Are they shy? What's happening? Versus the maybe we switch the model to accommodate them, and we do like what Senator Howard Stevenson told the Learning Council early when the pandemic is like, we're witnessing the death of whole group. We're witnessing like a total change. So what I have my attention on is motivation is partly structure, and you guys are seeing it from every angle. So when you talk about sort of where you're going, I mean, what I'm showing you on the screen right now is wild to most people. They're like, what? How does that even work? It does work because FedEx can get a package anywhere in the world in 24 hours. Amazon can get you a cold box of ice cream in most cities in under 2 hours. Logistics is real. We're not applying them in education to take the human interface and elevate it to a super premium. And that's what motivates a lot of those kids is that human part. Other kids are like, I don't care about that. I don't want to talk to the teacher. Blah. You know, I don't need them. So we're now confronted with a new equity of the disparity of human motivation. And I just want you guys to talk about sort of what your inklings are, you know, in terms of your structural shift. Where are you headed?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, as you said, this graphic might put some people back a bit in their chair and get their attention, and not always in the best ways. But what I can tell you that I'm seeing, and this is again a broad scope of just the reality of how folks set up their remote learning and set up their return to school plans, is that you had said some things about when tech can be used in the right ways, it could be motivating. But it's not necessarily zero sum here, you know, in the sense that, well, you can get away with some things on it. If it's used in the wrong ways, it could be demotivating and fall below that line. And I really think in my gut, that's where the broad scope is right now, that the way that virtual learning has been conceived of and thought about, conceptualized, had not put a premium on this. I'm speaking from some of my own experiences. My kids are a little bit older than Paul's, of a college student and a senior in high school. And gosh, you know, you start to think about some of these colleges have been doing remote or e-learning type work for quite a while and have it down. In fact, some states have legislation, to my awareness, I know it's come up in Illinois once and hadn't gone through yet, but before they graduate high school, have to take a remote class at some point. Yeah. This was all talked about pre-pandemic. So, you know, I think we've missed some real important opportunities to put the premium where it belongs. When I see my own child, you know, have 2 days a week in a month, or 2 days in a month, and both days are just full of paper and pencil tests, because that's the opportunity that they had. It tells me a lot about what is valued in the time that you have. And if it's not about that connection piece, all those opportunities, everyone could sit, not that they want to, but to sit everyone down for 45 minutes to take a test to prove something or other and put a letter grade on it during a pandemic is, you know, if that's what we think equity is, we've missed some big things. So future and thinking ahead, Paul and I've had a lot of conversations about, we're small districts, you know, so many of our colleagues thought about, if we have 30% of our kids do remote learning, all right, this was generally the number, is 30 to 40% is what it was in the summer.
Yeah.
Some of our colleagues move forward to say, well, we're going to have to hire teachers to do remote learning, and they'll be exclusive remote teachers. I worried a lot about that model because we didn't know how long this would last. And I just thought that smacked of all kinds of equity issues, in the sense of, well, let's take the teacher that knows how to do this the best and serve these 12 kids that are remote in this grade level, and lose out across the rest of the grade level. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. Yeah. So the simultaneous model seemed to be the way to go, and has some promise for how we can return. Can we sustain remote learning moving forward? Yes. Yes, we can. Without equivocation, we can. But I think for us in school districts like mine and Paul's, there's going to have to be some opportunities to build cooperatives, consortiums, different kinds of partnerships, to really try to make sure that we are thinking outside the box in ways that are true professional learning communities. You know, not just the cover of a book, but a real professional learning community where we're able to think about and have reflective dialogue and get better, and not be afraid to try something that isn't fully baked right away on day one. So that's my thoughts. I see more of this next year in school districts like mine and others nearby.
Good.
Yeah, you know, to me, the internet is a window to the world. And you can connect with anyone throughout the world, then education is going to have to change, because I find it hard to believe that we can't partner with kids from other countries and see them in real time and have something that's just so special that we could never do before. And to me, this is the first step of many steps of building those partnerships globally, where there are kids in South Korea, North Korea, China, India, that we can connect with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And we can learn from, and we can learn together. And I think that's a game changer. And for us, one of the things that we did during this summer as part of our program, we call it the flip the classroom model, not a flipped classroom, but a flip the classroom model, which gives us quite a bit of autonomy. What we did is we had some of our teachers work together in a co-teaching setting, and they had to plan together, and they were able to literally have artists in the art class Zoom in and work with the kids. So we had professional artists that were coming into the class that were a part of a number of lesson plans. And it was awesome. The feedback we received from the parents, the feedback we received from the kids, it was a game changer. And I can tell you, our Board of Education, my Board of Education specifically, wants us to start to look at a model where we start to reach out. Because when you have kids that have a passion for science, why are we keeping scientists from Zooming in, WebExing in? You pick whatever software program that you want. They should be able to come and they should be a part of it. I think what gets lost in the shuffle is the word remote. People think remote means you don't have to be in the building. And you could be in the building and still be remote, whether that's from class to class, or from school to school, or from state to state, or from country to country. Those pathways are there. And for me, I think this is going to open up some really big doors for kids that may not be able, we talked about this, to critically connect. They're going to be able to chase their passions in ways that we've never seen before. And it is just going to be awesome, assuming we embrace it and assuming we own it. And those are the two things that are going to be really, really difficult as we start to move forward, because there's going to be a reclusive effort to go back to doing business the way we did business. And that's not acceptable. We're going to have to start to progress in a way so that when our kids do get to college, as Victor's experienced, they're going to be very fluid, very fluent, and what is already there to levels that we've never even seen. And so for me, it's really, really exciting. But at the same time, we need the kids to connect in school. That's where the activities and the athletics and the altruism really come into play. And so let's not forget that the school does serve a greater purpose with those connections.
Yeah, I love this. You've entered the matrix, and you've learned that there's we call the future of education extra liminal learning, because it's beyond your limits. You're not a building anymore. You're not a walled off set of teachers. You could use any teacher from anywhere. Your kids can travel to anywhere. They can learn from anyone. And if you take that up notches, orders of magnitude above where we're at right now, where a lot of leaders in your position, they think, oh, I'm a guy who makes sure the lights are on and the teachers are in their rooms. And that's my construct. Oh, no. Your construct is now anyone from anywhere crafting a brand that might use NASA as teachers for half the science stuff. And then when you're marketing to the people who you don't want to homeschool anymore in your area, you're going to pull them back in. It's like, listen, here's the full breadth of the world we've just laid on your plate. And the teachers and the parents salivate over that. And they're like, why am I trying to do this on my own? These guys can bring me the world, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the awesomeness I think that's coming. And I'm so glad you guys are both thinking that way. And you realize this is more than readiness for this moment. We are truly going to change structure. And things are not going to be the same. And even like what Terry Vest was saying, but just before you guys got on, is like the problem with remote learning right now and a lot of video conferencing is teachers think they're on TV the whole time. And you know what it was like to go into a classroom, right? Where like sometimes you walk in and it's dead quiet. No one's talking. The teacher isn't on stage. She's floating around. She's checking something. Kids are studying independently. I have yet to see a video conferencing simultaneous classroom where the teacher's not like on stage the whole time. What I'd like to see a video classroom where you get on there and it's dead quiet. No one's saying anything. They're all on camera. They're studying. And then once in a while, somebody raises their hands and asks a question, just like when you're live in the classroom. I don't see that right now. I see overworked teachers. So, I'm going to stay quiet for a second. Go ahead, Victor. I know you got stuff to say.
That's not hard to get me started on something like that. But, I'm glad you said it the way you did. with some folks have a limited construct in being a superintendent in a current practitioner. That I'm glad to hear it said by someone else as well. And I do think that there's some limited construct, and we just have to acknowledge that. And when we think about what might happen, and we then throw on top of that the sort of like resistance to change, and then sort of like risk, adverse behavior and all those kinds of things. I mean, it's a recipe for status quo, and talking about the 21st century when it's 2021, and we're getting a quarter of the century of the way in, and we're still like, yeah, it's the 21st century. Like we need to be really thinking far ahead. But I also want to kind of pin an important point here, is that, I mean, this goes back decades with the internet, in the sense of, and even prior to, wonderful, forward-thinking, effective administrators and teachers bringing in parts of the world that they wouldn't have had access to traditionally for a long time. Like that's always been something that someone has been doing and tinkering with. But to make that a new construct, to make that a normal, to make that something that we could become part of the system, that's what we're talking. That's what it feels like we're talking about here, and why it's a challenge. So if there's teachers like, I was doing that all the time, in my AP bio class, we would always remote in to the cardiologist and show them how to do the surgery or something. And great, that may be a great example. I'd probably push on that a little bit and say, well, I guess what came from it, if it was just a sense of being able to watch and not really learn from, big difference. But I digress a bit. All that being said is, I think what you mentioned about where there's overworked teachers, we had at a recent board meeting, we had a teacher come in and just share with the board how pleased they were that, and how happy they were that the Board of Education took a risk to trust the teachers to take step forward in a condition where most did not, where teachers weren't comfortable, and thank them for giving them the opportunity to be a professional and prove it not only to themselves but to others. And the way she ended it was to say, I am proud and I am tired. And it's an interesting sort of emotional and physical place to be. Is like, I am glad we did what we did, but I know we paid something for this. I mean, there has been personal sacrifice, professional sacrifice. I call it putting chips on the table. Lots of chips been put on the table this year. All that political and social capital has been traded in to do certain things. But I would say that we have teachers that are able to walk into a classroom, open the Zoom to get the handful of students that are there, and that interaction feels to be very natural and not as bumpy and lumpy as it used to be in August and September, but it's efficient now. It is what you would want to see, I believe, where students that are in a class and on a Zoom are interacting with each other and sort of broadcasting and elevating discussion points to a teacher that's able to manage that in a way they never thought about before.
That's so good.
So we're in I'm monitor my airtime here, because I know, Paul's got that exact same thing going on there. And, we've learned and pushed each other. We both had experienced, athletics and both know that, and I just sharing here personally, like without special teachers, particularly two, for me personally, I'm in a completely different chair than I'm sitting in now, totally different. So to me, there's a lot that's owed back to a profession that gave me so much. And that's why I'm just wired to think forward this way. And I'm okay with making those kinds of decisions. So it's been really a pleasure to work with someone like Paul this year. Really not my style to collaborate at that level of intensity and detail. But we've found some pretty special things here that I think can be replicated, scaled, and shouldn't be forgotten about. We're just on recently with the CDC. They got some attention and said, hey, we heard you're doing some things. Let's get you on this call. And they said the same. They're like, have you thought about doing a peer journal study? Have you thought about doing that? It's like, yeah, I've thought about it. We don't have the bandwidth right now, but there's some special things that are happening. That's why we're eager to share with others.
Yeah. Thank you.
This question reminds me, when I was back in going from a master's in special education, I had a professor who talked about locking up the copier in the copy room and making sure that people could not make copies, because his expectation was for you to be creative. And I think this is what it requires. It requires us to be creative, to think outside the box, to aspire to do something that is just so awesome. And what we've done is we've literally given over our professional development model. In fact, we've given over our improvement of instruction budget. We've given it over to the teachers because we believe the teachers can improve upon the instructional leadership. We believe that the teachers can provide the quality professional development that they feel is going to be best for them. We believe that the program coherence is going to be better than ever before, because the more they talk, the more they share, the better results we're going to find. And the teacher-to-teacher trust has just grown. And it has just been such a great thing to witness. It has really changed the way we perceive one another. And to Victor's point, we're truly moving toward the Rick Dufour professional learning community. And that's the Stevenson model that to me is a number one. Although others may be similar, it's not the same. And so for our school, we found that by giving them those pathways, the professionals are able to determine whether or not they believe in Google Classroom. The professionals are able to determine whether they believe that Intuit Math is the program that's going to work best for their kids. We believe that if they have a blended model that they choose to integrate, they can do that. And we've even taken it to the point where we actually have the lesson plan study through Japan, which really was coming to the forefront about 20 years ago. That has become a resurgence in our district. We have teachers that are taking risk and saying, hey, I have a lesson. I'm not sure if it's the best lesson for my kids. I want you to zoom into my room and I want you to assess the lesson, not the practice. It's the lesson. Because I think if we really focus on that lesson, perfect the lesson, it really protects our teachers to take risks. And when they take risks, we're going to have great things that are really not in the not too distant future. And to me, I'm so pleased with the risks that our teachers have taken during the course of the year. It has been tiring. There's no doubt about it. And we've tried to create schedules that free them up as much as possible. And that's been a very, very difficult task. And again, we cannot have, especially my community, and Victor's heard me say this, my teachers they're the best. They're the best. They're just doing everything that they can to provide. We are so proud of them. And we would not be here without them doing all the work that they've done up to this point.
I love everything that you just said. And I also love the fact that the inspection goes all the way down to the instruct itself, because we're in a major mutation moment. I don't think that teaching looks the same as it used to look at all. And that's a huge shift, and it's very emotional. So I want to turn to this last few minutes that we have and talk about the motivation of teachers. You guys have probably had some routines I'd like you to share, and some battle words you've used with your own teachers. What are those? What have you done to motivate when they needed it? Not that they always did, because they're cool people. You just said that. Let's have Paul go first this time, Victor. I'm just switching it up. Okay. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'd like to make it sound like it's all apples, butterflies, cupcake, daisies. That's not the case. I will share with you that it's been a tough road. It's been a tough road, and we've had some really courageous conversations about where we are today. And what I've learned is in my role, you cannot personalize it. You have to be able to absorb a lot of what is being said. You have to be able to not only hear, but to listen. And I think those are two entirely different categories when it comes to being a leader that's able to move in a direction that's most advantageous. And at the same time, listening does not mean we're not doing exactly what you expect us to do. It may be a modification of what you expect us to do, but we're going to try our best to find the fulcrum and the balance beam, because that's what it's about. You have to be able to balance not only the needs of the students, but it's the needs of the teachers, it's the needs of our parents, it's the needs of the community, and the needs of the Board of Education. And so finding that fulcrum has been an art. I will share with you that it's moved quite a bit. But at the same time, I also have two really great principals that know how to work with their staff, that know how to give breaks to our teachers. and that know how to really work within the context of our parameters that we set, whether it's our policies or our procedures. And from time to time, if a teacher needs to work from home to get a breather, we do that. We provide the subs, we provide the support, we will fill in for them. We've designed a schedule, especially at the elementary, that provides a lot of time that's allocated to the teachers. And I will share, it's been a difficult road. It has been a difficult road. It's more difficult than most, and people are going to need a break. But at the same time, we have provided pathways in the summer for our teachers to learn. If they so choose, they can extend upon their learning. We do pay a premium for our summer school. That's something that our board has really endorsed. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you're not alone. You don't have to do the summer school program alone. So each of the classes, we require 2 teachers to teach it. Good. Because we do not want people to be overwhelmed. We do want ideas to bounce off one teacher to the next, and take risks. You need to take risks, because that's what you're going to roll into the following year with. The risks that you've taken, there's going to be rewards. And we're going to do our best to make sure that we're in it for the long haul, and we're here to support. And the last thing I'll leave you with is we have a very dynamic PTO. Our PTO just really stepped up. I mean, if it wasn't for them stepping up during the lunch period, if it wasn't for us stepping up to really provide the TLC regularly, I don't think we would be where we are today. And we're not done. We're not done. We have quite a way to go. But it's been very, very positive. And like I said earlier, we're planning our graduation. We're going to have our graduation. That's something that's so critical. It's mission critical. We're working with our PTO, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So Victor.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, thank you for sharing all that, Paul. And I agree with all of it. I would echo those comments and add in. So there were some mechanical pieces, I think, that helped as far as building up some of the things that would be expected of a leader. And when we think about what's expected, it's like, oh, well, have a balanced budget or make hiring recommendations or do this. And all those things are important, sure. But that's not what people really expect. I mean, the literature out there on this has been pretty clear for a while that I think folks want things like trust, stability, hope, compassion, like that's it. I mean, that's the Gallup poll is out there on that, in strengths-based leadership work that's been done, says those 4 in particular. So how do those things get built up? When we think about the point of care testing that we had here when nobody else had it, all right, so yeah, I'm competitive as they come, but I'm glad we did it and pursued it. But having it here said something to everybody, and it demonstrated something more than saying it. Vaccine efforts. We're just about 90% of our staff, basically everybody that wanted to get a vaccine at our school district has been vaccinated at this point. We're very privileged to have that opportunity, and we follow, and as the first, one to say it, with great privilege comes great responsibility. Is this service-oriented work or isn't it? This year it tells us that. We've met, everybody knows somebody in their family, and I have a teacher in my family too. You meet somebody out and about, and they're like, oh, what do you do for a living? I'm in education. Oh, I have a teacher that's a cousin. I have a teacher that's my mom's a teacher. Somebody's always a teacher or connected to education in some way. And you get into a conversation. It's like, well, we didn't do it for the money. We did it to help other people. We did it to serve. Okay, did we? Because this is the year that we're seeing that's what service in many high level ways is looking like. We pivoted at some point. I would say it was probably right before winter break, that it went from nobody else is doing what we're doing. Nobody around here is doing what we're doing. Why are we? As if that was the reason not to. And it pivoted to like, we are proud as a staff that we're doing what we're doing, and other people should be doing this too. So something changed in there, and having the testing, having the vaccine efforts, giving them permission to fail and try, I think was another rallying cry and something that was important to demonstrate. But we've talked about this leadership model a lot, Paul and I, over the last handful of months. And I look at it this way and say it is measured in absolutes essentially, but it's either this or bust. And it goes as follows. It's either communication or bust. Now, I don't know when it'll be a bust. It might take years, but at some point, if communication is not on point, it will bust. Relationships or bust. These are 2 of the most critical. The third is the political frame or bust. To me, that's tying the first 2 together. If you don't understand how the politics lay out, internal, external politics, that's going to bust on you at some point. 4 is a tricky one, and this is not store-bought, and it's not classroom learned always, but it's deep roots or bust. This is where you're pulling from interesting places to find out, do you have that grit, resilience, and so on to hang in there and continue to move forward? So deep roots or bust, I think in terms of a leadership framework is really important to consider. And then finally, it's this staying humble and hungry. I think both together are important because the humility, of course, is something that we have to be mindful about when we do the work as a real service-oriented leader, but staying hungry too. And I think those go together. We both of us, were hungry to learn more about how to test. We could have been fine not testing, but we wanted to continue to do more. And I think being geared up that way and modeling that when parents came and challenged us about what we were doing, defending what the teachers were doing, built up that trust, built up some of that hope and stability that people really look for. And I think that's made the difference here. That's just straight out. That's the way that it happened.
Yeah, you are the example in every way, and just standing up and being that example. Getting out of bed every morning is the big thing. We've really had a great conversation with you guys today, and I really want to thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's going to be great to get this out to our whole national audience so they can learn from you. And hopefully the next time I come to Illinois and we do a live event, if we're ever allowed to do that again, you guys are going to be there, force. I love coming to Illinois, Midwest too. This event, we're having a lot of Vermontians and New Hampshireans and Rhode Islands, and tomorrow I think there's one panel with 9 people on it, and then 3 superintendents at the end. One's from Meriden Public, one of my top Edu Jedi Award winners. So proud of them. Hopefully you guys can join us back again for part of tomorrow. The back end part, the last 2 hours would be great. But thank you for all you're doing. I'm super proud of you. If I was there, I could virtually hug you like this, virtual hug. High five like this. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. So kudos to all your staff too. Let them know Learning Council out here, Big News Media Research. We're like rooting for all of them, pat on the back for all of them from us. And thanks you guys very much for what you're doing. I'm going to give a final thanks to my sponsors and show what we're going to do tomorrow. And then we'll sort of cruise on, but I grateful. Thank you.
Thank you as well.